Stella had always been different from her siblings. While Grace, her older sister, thought about work and responsibilities, and Frank, her younger brother, focused on how to build a stable future, Stella preferred to talk about love. When others worried about saving money or planning their lives, she drifted into daydreams about romance and marriage. Her mother often told her she needed to grow up, but Stella only smiled and said life was too short to spend worrying. And for that reason, even when the whole world warned her, she clung to Pablo. She believed her love was strong enough to change him, strong enough to make him better. To her, love was worth every sacrifice. Pablo was not a stranger to anyone in the community. People whispered about him everywhere, and none of the whispers were good. He was known as a Yahoo boy, someone who spent his days on the internet looking for unsuspecting people to scam. For a time, he had money, and Stella had followed him proudly, saying she had found the man who truly loved her. She walked around with confidence, ignoring the people who shook their heads and called Pablo a fraud. But as quickly as Pablo's money had appeared, it vanished. His laptop no longer brought in anything. He had no steady job and no plan for his future, but instead of adjusting, he depended on Stella for almost everything. Even so, Stella refused to hear anything negative about him. When her siblings told her to leave the relationship because Pablo was only using her, Stella would argue and say Pablo had a good heart, insisting that he was different and that people only misunderstood him. Even when Pablo beat her during arguments, Stella found ways to defend him. She told her family that it was not his fault, that sometimes he just got angry, but he always apologized after. To her, those apologies were proof of love even if nobody else agreed. She believed love was about standing by someone no matter what, and she was determined to prove everybody wrong. Her mother advised her again and again, but eventually got tired. She told herself that Stella was old enough to make her own decisions, even if those decisions would bring her pain. Meanwhile, Pablo enjoyed every part of the situation. He had a woman who gave him money, cooked for him, and defended him from everyone. He saw no reason to change. In his eyes, Stella would always take his side. For months, Pablo had been complaining that no clients had come his way. His laptop sat on the table all day, but no money flowed in. Instead of finding another source of income, he grew moodier and more demanding. Whenever Stella tried to encourage him to be patient, he snapped at her, accusing her of not believing in him. To make peace, she always ended up giving him money from her own pocket, even though she barely earned enough from her sales business. She told herself this was temporary and reminded herself of stories she had read, where women stayed by their men during difficult times, and later enjoyed the rewards. She wanted to be one of those women who could proudly say she never gave up. Plus, wasn't it her duty as a loving girlfriend to stand by him? Later that evening, after another long day at the market, Stella sat in her room scrolling through her phone. A story caught her attention. It was about a young woman who had given up her womb to her husband so that he could make money. According to the story, the woman said she did it out of love, and after the ritual, she adopted 2 beautiful children and was now living happily with her husband. Most people in the comments mocked the woman. They called her foolish, desperate, and blind, but Stella did not laugh like the others. Her mind took another direction. She thought about Pablo's struggles and about how she wanted to prove her love to him. Then the thought came into her mind, what if I did this too? It was not that she wanted to lose her womb or believed strongly in rituals, but she wanted Pablo to know she was ready to sacrifice anything for him. In her heart, she believed he loved her enough not to let anything bad happen to her. She thought if she suggested it, he would appreciate her loyalty. So the next morning, Stella decided to share her idea with Pablo. They were eating together in her small apartment when she spoke. Pablo, don't worry too much about money, she said. I will give you my womb to use for ritual so that clients will start paying you again. For a moment, Pablo froze. His spoon stopped halfway to his mouth, and he stared at her with wide eyes. Stella thought he would laugh or scold her for saying something so extreme. Instead, his face lit up with excitement. Stella, you mean it? You will really do that for me? He asked, his tone full of eagerness. She nodded, though deep inside she did not fully mean it. Yes, because I love you. And I know you love me too. Pablo grabbed her hands with sudden energy. Oh Stella, you are the type of woman men pray for every day, and I can't believe you're mine. Don't worry, once this thing works, I will marry you straight away. We will adopt children, and take care of your whole family. You will never regret this. I swear. Stella forced a smile, pretending to be happy. But as he hugged her tightly, a small voice in her head whispered that maybe she had made a mistake. In the days that followed, Pablo's mood changed completely. Before, he had been restless and angry, snapping over little things. Now he walked around with a new kind of excitement and smiled often, making Stella even more scared. Then one evening, Pablo leaned close to her and whispered, "I have already spoken to someone. He is a very strong man, he will help us with the ritual, and once we finish everything, money will flow again." Stella's heart skipped. She stared at him in shock. "You already talked to someone?" "Yes," Pablo answered firmly, his eyes glowing with determination. "Do you think I will waste time when I have a woman like you who is ready to sacrifice for me? This is our breakthrough, and very soon we will be rich. We will marry and travel. Everything will be perfect." Stella's chest tightened with fear. She had said the words about giving her womb only to sound supportive, not because she truly meant them. She had assumed Pablo would laugh it off or thank her without taking it seriously. Now she realized he had already taken action. Stella's family soon noticed that something was troubling her. When Grace came to visit, she was unusually quiet, barely ate and jumped at every sudden sound. "Stella, talk to me," Grace said, placing a hand on her shoulder. "Is Pablo beating you again?" Stella shook her head quickly. "No, it's not that. I'm just tired." But Grace was not convinced. She kept pressing, but Stella refused to explain. She was too scared that if she revealed what she had promised Pablo, her family would drag her out of the relationship by force. Even in her fear, the thought of losing Pablo still felt unbearable. As the days went by, Stella began to lose weight. Her face grew pale and her voice weak. One evening, when Stella visited her parents and siblings as she usually did on weekends, Grace pulled her aside and refused to let go until her sister spoke. "Stella, something is happening to you," she stated, looking her straight in the eyes. "Tell me the truth." At first, Stella shook her head. "I'm fine, I'm just tired," she whispered. But her voice trembled, and Grace saw the tears building in her eyes. She pressed her further, until finally Stella broke down. Through sobs, she whispered, "Grace, I told Pablo I would give him my womb for ritual." Grace froze, her mouth open in shock. "Stella, do you hear yourself? Do you know what you are saying?" Her voice rose in anger. "How can you even think of such a thing? Do you want to die?" Stella quickly grabbed her hand. "Please don't shout. Don't tell Mother. I didn't mean it. I only said it to show him that I love him. I thought he would be touched, but he took it seriously. He has even spoken to a ritualist." Grace was horrified. She paced the room, shaking her head. "This is madness. That boy doesn't love you, Stella. He loves money, and he will sacrifice you for it if you don't wake up." Their voices carried through the apartment, and Frank, who had been nearby, overheard them. He stormed into the room, his face red with anger. "What did I just hear?" he shouted. "I knew that useless boy was planning something evil. I will deal with him today." Stella ran to block the door, tears streaming down her face. "Please, Frank, don't confront him. If you do, he will leave me. I don't want to lose him." Frank glared at her, almost unable to believe her words. "Lose him? Stella, better to lose a man than to lose your life. Do you want us to bury you before you realize the truth?" The shouting drew their mother from her room. When the whole truth was revealed, she sat on a chair and held her head in her hands. "Stella," she said with sorrow in her voice, "have I not warned you? Have I not prayed for you? How can you be this blind?" Stella wept bitterly, but even in her tears she clung to the idea that Pablo loved her. "Mother, I know he loves me," she said quietly. "I will talk to him. I will make sure the ritual does not happen. But please, don't push me to leave him." Her family exchanged looks of disbelief. To them, it was clear that Pablo cared only about money, yet Stella was still defending him. But since she promised that she would speak to him and that the ritual would not go on, they decided to give her space. Days passed, and the subject came up again during another family gathering. Grace asked her directly, "Stella, did you talk to him?" Stella nodded quickly. "Yes, I told him, and we agreed not to go on with the ritual anymore." She forced a smile, trying to sound convincing. "You don't need to worry. Everything is fine now." Her words seemed to calm them, and they let the matter rest. But Stella knew she was lying. She had not stopped Pablo, and he had never agreed to end the plan. She only told her family what they wanted to hear, hoping they would leave her alone. On a quiet Friday evening, Pablo came home and joined Stella on the couch while she was watching a movie. His face looked too serious, that he made her uneasy. "The Babalawo has set a date," he said slowly. "It's time to prepare yourself." Stella's heart sank. She turned to him, her hands shaking slightly. "Pablo, I don't know if I can do this. I'm really scared." Pablo reached for her hand and held it firmly with his eyes fixed on hers. "Stella, this is the only way. If you truly love me, you'll stand by me. Don't let fear take that away from us. Because if you can't do this, then I'll have to find someone who will." Those words cut deep. She sat in silence, torn between fear and her love for him. She thought about all the time she had stood by him, all the promises he had made, and all the dreams they had shared. In her mind, turning him down now would undo everything she had claimed about standing by him. After struggling with herself, she finally whispered, "I'll do it." The days that followed moved quickly. Weeks passed, and the fixed date drew closer. On the chosen night, Pablo drove Stella to the Babalawo's shrine. The Babalawo was a ritualist feared by many in the community. The place gave off an eerie feeling, the moment she stepped inside. Strange objects covered the floor and hung from the walls. The air smelled foul, a mixture of blood and rotting things. The Babalawo began to work without wasting time. He picked some of the strange items and ground them together. He stirred the mixture and finally handed it to her. "Eat," he ordered. Her throat felt dry but she obeyed, chewing and swallowing the foul-tasting mix until the bowl was empty. Afterward, the Babalawo gave the next instruction. "Take this sacrifice to the T-junction in the middle of the night," he said firmly. "Do not allow anyone to see you. When you get there, drop it and leave immediately." Stella's hands trembled as she collected the sacrifice from him. Before they left the shrine, the Babalawo gave his final instructions. He handed Pablo a small calabash covered with red cloth. Inside was another sacrifice. "When you return home, the woman's womb will begin to bleed. That is the sign that it has been taken in exchange for wealth. When the bleeding starts, you will give her the last piece of sacrifice to eat. That will complete the ritual." That night, just as the Babalawo commanded, Pablo drove her to the T-junction and she placed the sacrifice there quickly, walking away without looking back. By the time they returned home, the bleeding had already started. Stella staggered into the bathroom, holding her stomach as sharp pains tore through her. She knew the ritual was working. Moments later, Pablo entered with the final sacrifice in his hands. Without a word, he set it before her. Weak and shaking, Stella ate it, sealing the ritual as the Babalawo had said. From that night on, her body would never carry children again. But for Pablo, the path to riches had been opened. Weeks passed after the ritual. Life began to change for Pablo as he went back to his scamming business, and soon, Pablo had many new clients. Some were wealthy individuals from different countries, others were government officials. Whenever he spoke to someone online and asked for money, they would send it without hesitation. It was as if they were under a spell. They never questioned him or argued, and most especially, never delayed. Large sums of money started pouring into his accounts, and his bank account grew fat. He had made it big. Through it all, Stella stayed by his side. She knew her sacrifice was the reason for his success. Each time she saw him counting his money or boasting about his gains, she told herself that her pain was worth it. But as Pablo's wealth grew, he went back to his old ways. The same man she had known before, the one who shouted at her, insulted her, and raised his hands against her, returned. Stella tried to remind him of the promises he had made. She begged him to see her sacrifice and not to forget all she had given up for him. But Pablo no longer cared. In his eyes, she was beneath him. She was nothing. Not long after, Pablo told her plainly that their relationship was over. He said he no longer wanted her around and that it was better for them to go their separate ways. Stella was crushed. She had given him her body, her womb, and her future, only to be abandoned. With no choice, she returned to her family. They were heartbroken and disappointed when they learned the full truth, but they did not abandon her. They supported her through the pain, even though her life could never return to what it was before. Stella carried the weight of her decisions, knowing she had lost everything for a man who never truly cared for her.